And we are live, and it's Friday. It's finally Friday. Although I work tomorrow because it's dementia group, but that's okay. Welcome to the Friday Grief Chat. I'm Jill.
I'm Deb, and this is
Dr. Tammy Isaac.
Dr. Tammy Isaac.
Lucky to have her.
Yeah, that's all right. Oh man, Tammy, it is so good to have you on.
Thank you.
Jill and I met her at International Death, Grief, and Bereavement Conference. You had a poster session up, and I go, we need her.
We became groupies instantly.
Yes, and that was about church grief, right? Your book? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she's got this other book out that I will be ordering ASAP. No, I will be getting ASAP.
Yes, I mailed it yesterday.
Awesome. And I love when we can share books, right?
And we put all the information in the chat. At the top of the chat, you will find how to reach Tammy at AOL. You love that. And the names of her books, which I put in really fast, so you may need to look around a little bit, but it's got fabulous information and you can get all the books. Mm-hmm. We are total groupies and total fangirls. And we both worked with churches and grief. Mm-hmm. And how churches sometimes don't do grief very well.
Absolutely.
And sometimes do damage with grief. Yeah. And Tammy is like that person who gets it beyond gets it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
You're going to come back to Wisconsin next year, right?
Yes, absolutely. I will be
here.
I'm excited. But thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be here about our conversation today.
Oh man. And so let's sort of start that. I love your first quote. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to sort of go from the synopsis and let me say the quote and then I'll ask you to say more.
Okay.
First quote, because this is about the book, your latest one, The Grief Inside the Ache. Mm-hmm. Chronic pain led, grief followed. And you wrote, I began spending time with patients who were not dying, but were still suffering. I listened, not to solve, but to understand. And slowly I began to hear something familiar. It wasn't just pain they were describing, it was grief. Mm-hmm. And that is poetry in my mind because
my of the ears.
Yes.
That's who I spent all day yesterday with.
Yeah.
Because that's one of my specialties is chronic illness and pain.
Wow. Okay.
End of life, terminal illness, and dementia. All the fun stuff.
Yeah.
And all of that has so much grief wrapped around it. Mm-hmm. And I did a presentation for our local senior center yesterday on dementia. Dementia 101 is what I call it. And fully half the questions were about the grief.
Yeah.
That goes with watching someone coping with the various aspects of dementia. Exactly. So it's just such a part of life. Yeah. And there's just so searching for support.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't know how to ask for help.
Absolutely. And I think, spending time with patients, because initially I started out as a chaplain in hospice. And so grief was all centered around that there was this death coming, expected, and was going to happen. Right. But then when I transitioned into the hospital, everybody wasn't dying.
No, but it's quite inconvenient of them.
Right. So then it meant that I was hearing some of the same comments and responses that you hear when somebody's dying. And the thing I realized is that not everybody understood what they were experiencing was actually grief.
Right.
And because they didn't understand that it was grief, they really didn't know how to handle it, how to process it. And the way that you start to process is really by naming it and acknowledging like this is grief. And so it wasn't like dealing with something that had ended, but it was dealing with something that was ongoing and continuous, which meant that the grief had the possibility of staying at the same level of intensity versus after someone dying, you will see the intensity of grief kind of level out to a certain point. But when you have people who have chronic pain and chronic illness that cannot be cured, that will not be here, but they will live a long life in pain, then how
and be told they can't have all the pain meds because now we think Tylenol fixes everything.
Absolutely.
My bias there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. And so I started just to hear the trend of comments and concerns. And so I started to dive into helping people see and be able to name what you're experiencing is grief, because all of our life we associate grief with only death, and grief is more than that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I love how you praise and reframed that unending ache. So another quote you had is, living with unending ache requires a radical form of courage, not the courage to defeat pain, but the courage to befriend yourself in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, because grief, somebody asked me one time, I was at a mental health workshop, I was presenting on grief, and a lady walked up to me and she was like, hey, my mom has been gone so many years and I'm still grieving. And she was like, how long is it gonna last? And I leaned over and I said, well, how long is she gonna be dead?
Wow.
And
Great answer.
yeah, and she looked at me almost like a light bulb came on, and she realized like, oh, that's how this works, right? So the thing is, like, there is not an end to grief that I believe. My belief is that we live with grief for the rest of our lives because the thing that was taken will always be gone, right?
We integrate it and it becomes part of us and becomes part of our life story.
Absolutely. Your mosaic changes, the story, your role begins to change, but it doesn't become helpful or healthy if we don't accept and acknowledge that there is I want to say there's a thorn in my flesh, right? As Paul is saying.
Something's missing.
Something's missing, something's broken, things are not the same.
And they won't be.
And it will never be, right?
Never.
And I believe it takes courage and a lot of vulnerability to say, this sucks, it hurts, and I'm not the same. I'm changing. I don't want to change, but if I'm going to have a successful life, then I have to. And so that's why I think that it takes courage.
Right, right. That's, I'm going to go on to another quote because I just love that you have them all written out for me.
And I do want to say that Deb has come up with a thing she's going to do with her grief group where she's going to take the quotes and give them to folks to discuss in the group. And I'm about to steal that too.
I love that idea. I need to do it.
Oh my gosh. So, and I also like to bring, like, I brought Andrew's book to last month's grief or this month's grief group. I'll bring yours to the next one.
Nice.
I'm gonna order it. And
I can't wait to see it. I got 2 of Andrew's books for 2 of our 3 offices, and our staff and student clinicians are fighting over them.
Wow. Wow.
There you go. So you wrote, pain doesn't knock. It doesn't wait to be welcomed or even noticed. It shows up sometimes suddenly, sometimes slowly, without asking if the timing is right. And from that moment on, it rearranges the room.
Mm-hmm. It's an uninvited guest. It's I'm one of those people, please don't show up to my house without warning me. I need to know that you're going to come. I have dogs. They have a house that they live in. And so I have to put them up. I have to do all these things. I like to be prepared. But pain and grief, they don't ask to be invited. Mm-mm. They simply show up, right? And it's just based on how life is functioning and flowing. It's just like me turning 49 and waking up and going, I got to pause a minute before I jump right out of bed. I didn't invite that ache, but that's something. I didn't invite it. I didn't invite 49 either, but okay, here we are, right? It shows up out of nowhere.
Mhm.
And these are guests that you can't simply turn away.
Mhm.
I tell people that grief will kick your door down until you allow it to come in. I also tell them it's like a pot on the stove with a cover that's boiling. And when it gets hot enough, it will blow that top off, right? We have to give it space to do what it needs to do. I am under the impression and belief that grief is something, not grief, but our emotions God has given to us to help process certain things in our lives, because there's only so much that the human body can take without having an outlet or some place to turn to. And I feel like if we don't allow grief to come and do the process and the healing, then our bodies start to take on these pains and ache, because you realize grief becomes physical, right?
It absolutely has a stress reaction. It causes swelling. It's where we get the syndrome called broken heart syndrome.
Absolutely.
It's very real. And for people with autoimmune illnesses, it
Yes.
makes them worse. Good morning,
Yes.
Janine.
Yes. Absolutely. And so what happens is, I didn't invite grief or this pain to come in, but when you don't allow grief to come in, you're actually inviting physical pain, physical sickness, right? So it's like, which guest are you going to have? Because you're going to have one,
Right.
and the one that's coming to heal often seems like the most painful one, because we don't want to feel the ache of lost love, the ache of being detached from something that we have been emotionally connected to. And we allow it to come in. It's going to change some things in our lives, right? My life has totally changed since the death of my mother. I mean, would I have wanted it? No, I would rather her still be here and go down that trajectory. But since I've allowed it to rearrange the furniture in my life and put the couch on the other side and put the bed in a different room, I've been able to live life successfully with my grief,
Right. You accommodate it, make room for it. My mom's photo is actually sitting right next to me in my desk.
Yeah.
And she on all my desks because her smile just makes the day better.
Look, I carry mine right here.
Right. See?
Every day.
Here's
Mama.
Oh, look at how beautiful she is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
My mom and I are dressed as a clown together at an event in the other room.
I love that.
Right. Because we got to keep those who have gone on and have died with us and accommodate them in a way that works.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And what's interesting is other people might be uncomfortable seeing those pictures.
Yeah.
But then they need to accommodate your loss. You don't need to accommodate their discomfort.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, death and dying is very uncomfortable for other people. I think that's not the work that I have to be concerned about. I think that's the work that person needs to be able to do on their own. So, but I need to be more focused on like being able to carry what I'm experiencing, which means that I need to be in safe spaces. And if I cannot share that with a certain person, then I can't spend that time with them, because I need to process what I'm going through.
And I want to add, when you've got chronic pain, you have so many losses other than the exhaustion and the pain and the gaslighting and the not being listened to or heard. There's also that you lose jobs and connections, and people get irritable because they don't see that. You can't see pain.
Yeah. Oh no, you can't.
Right.
One of the things I just shared, I went to spoke at the 20th annual Cluster Busters conference, and I shared this presentation about my book, and one of the things we talk about is that you can't see a headache, right? So it looks to you that I'm okay, right? And I may carry my pain very well, but that does not negate the intensity of what I'm experiencing and what I'm going through. And then, like you say, the effect of all of the other changes in my life that's happening. Because even though I have to let this uninvited guest into my house and into my space and allow it to rearrange things, I'm also now having to grieve the change
Right.
of the house, the change, the relocation. I'm a very habitual person. You know, I do things in a particular order. I put things in a particular place. And if I go to where the mail is supposed to be, but Grieve has decided that mail doesn't need to be by the front door, I'm walking to the front door and then I have to turn around and go back to the kitchen because it's on the kitchen counter, right? So now I have to grieve that my space has changed while also grieving the loss that I have. So it's so many multiple things that are attached to what you lose and having physical pain.
And with headaches, there comes the need to have darkness much of the time.
Mm-hmm.
My sister has been fully disabled by migraines for 5 years now, had to give up a teaching career. And when I call her, this has been a week where I've only had 4 days in the room instead of 7 days. So she's accommodated by, she knows I garden for health and mental health. She has a night garden. So she only has she lives on a 3rd floor, but she has a balcony. And she's created a night garden, and my other sister sent her a bunch of solar lights. And so she can go outside at night to enjoy her garden when she can't go out during the day.
That, I love that. That goes back to the quote where it talks about the courage to befriend it. That takes courage and finding ways to still be able to do things that you enjoy. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's a cool way to accommodate.
Yeah.
Tammy, I want to ask you, because I'm thinking about how different faith, different religions, or even senses of spirituality, they will deny grief access, or they say, yes, I'm grieving, and yes, things are rearranged. Don't worry. And then fill in the blank with your higher power. Mm-hmm. They're taking care of it. They're taking care of it. And yet you can tell from their outward expression that grief or pain is very evident.
Yeah.
And it affects their relationships. Part of that is known as spiritual bypassing.
Yes.
And so what do you see, or what have you seen to help people get past or point out spiritual bypassing? I'm just going to use that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of spiritual bypassing within the faith tradition, because I think we have been taught more of having the joyous side of our faith and having this great favor and everything working on our behalf. And I think that we forget that Romans tells us to weep with them that weep, and rejoice with them that rejoice. So there's a weeping and there's also a rejoicing. And we skip over the weeping because it's much harder to do and nobody likes it. And so one of the things I try to encourage people, especially with their faith, is to help them identify. So I'm Christian, right? So my spiritual perspectives usually come grounded from Christianity. But if you're not Christian, I do have other ways to help support that. But for this time, I usually point people to Jesus and say, let me show you these times where Jesus was emotional, where it saddened him, or where he became angry, right? So really what we're doing is telling people to shun away from their emotions that are less than happy. Right. And that's not God, right? And go ahead.
There are so many people I've worked with who've come in and have been members of the church for a long time. And the person who died was like one of the church mothers, right? That tradition. And they are told at the outset, at the moment of death, we need to celebrate now because she's gone home. And that immediately closes the door for that griever to anything related to faith, religion, church. They don't even hear the funeral. because they don't want that message. They want to be told Jesus wept.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what they want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
No.
and it goes to all ages. I had a teenager who was told when her pet died, you by her church leader, you should be okay with this, that no.
No.
Her constant companion just died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're such in a rush. Like I said, we're so involved with joy and happiness and pain. And even in the Christian faith, you can see, especially when we start to celebrate, resurrection, right? So when we start to do that, there's a lot of, in the preparation of that, when we talk about Holy Week and people are doing like 7 last sayings, there's not a lot of people focusing on what's happening in these days before, right? And then Saturday comes, it's the silent Saturday, what have you. We just jump over the fact that he is dead, and
right.
people were mourning.
Murdered. He was murdered,
right? You go straight to that. We do a lot of sitting in celebration, but we never sit enough in the lament to say he actually died, right? And I don't think we identify with those who are actually there with Jesus. They had to spend however many hours, 24 hours, 3 days in the grave, right? 3 days of mourning, right? 3 days of pain and agony, right? But we just jump right to it. So we don't understand the tension between the cross and the resurrection. We just know the cross and resurrection, but we don't sit enough in the grave.
We do not. I'm sorry, go ahead, Deb.
Well, I'm just because of time, I want to sort of lead it to something that happened very significant this week, that the Israeli and Palestinian hostages were swapped. And, I watched as these parents who kept hope, yet their children were like dead, not dead to them. Yeah. And then they were resurrected. They were actually alive, because a lot of people didn't know if their children were really alive or really dead. Right. And so as I had this bag, 2 bags of mixed feelings, Rabbi Leader, Steve
That's
Leader,
who I was going to bring up,
who was on this show, he said it's almost like he didn't deny that you feel like you were blessed or kissed, but yet slapped on the other cheek. That's what he said. Yeah. It's like you were slapped and kissed.
At the same time.
At the same time. And we mourn all those that didn't get to come home. And yet
so many of those on both sides, but there were so many bodies repatriated. And those families can only now start
to grieve.
Real grief process.
The real grief, right? Because there's the grief now intensifies, right?
That's where I think the Christian tradition, the Christian tradition should be borrowing from the Jewish tradition of sitting Shiva. I think we need that 30 days of acknowledging that loss has occurred.
Yeah.
The 30 days of being together and being cared for, or 7 days being cared for by their beloved community.
Yes.
And Rabbi Leader said what he would do at the end of Shiva with the family is he would take them out for a walk around the neighborhood and reintroduce the family to their community as they had now changed with their person missing. And I think that speaks to what you're saying. You gotta bring it out and name it and say there's a loss.
Absolutely. And in the biblical community, doing the research when I wrote my first grief book, or my first book, Let the Church Grieve,
right?
I learned that was the process of there was a time period set for the family to grieve, but then it was the community who came after a period of time to usher them back into daily life. But I do also want to say now that it's important to understand that grief and joy, I call it joy and pain, right? So I believe that joy and pain can be carried together.
Right.
And I go back to that old song. It's an old hip hop song. Joy and pain, sunshine and rain. Right? We can carry them together. And so when I think about these parents of these Israelis and those who received their children back, but also those that didn't, I think as a community together, they can hold space for joy and pain at the same time with one another.
It's the way to survive it. It's the way to get through it. And it's the way to connect.
The,
And give the grievers the space to do what they need to do.
Absolutely.
one time at one of my humor conferences, someone from the Heart Math Institute was there. And I found it so poignant that he said, you know, the heart goes love dub, but what happens between the dub and the love? And to pay attention to that little part, you know, because we keep saying love and dub to love also has a space.
Has a space.
And to honor that space.
Yes.
In between. It's a great meditation. Yeah. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share that because that's what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Pay attention to that unrecognized space with from grief back to joy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have a tattoo on my arm with, and it's totally illegal in Judaism, but I have it anyway. And right at this part of the heart, you know how a heart goes like there.
Yeah.
So this part is a chai, which means life. And then on the round part, I have hope and I have joy.
Yeah.
Because in hospice work, you go from joy, then it goes, you hope, and then you hope you could get back to joy.
Yeah.
And so it's those spaces in between that I think it would be healthier if we paid attention to.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
So
I think in the middle spaces is where we need the most support.
Yes.
I think we show up as communities really good in the beginning. And then they kind of get lost in the middle.
I'm going to put up a quote from one of our people who's watching. This is from Janine, and her wife is actually a minister. All Saints Sunday is this Sunday. I'm still angry over my dog dying. That was a very beloved dog to all of us. Yeah. I look fine, but I still grieve privately. It affects my tolerance of situations that should not even be a bump in my psyche. I feel like that commercial that holds up the smiley face paper all day.
Oh, I'm so sorry for your dog's loss. Oh my gosh. I think that, and I'm glad she shared that so people can also know how I describe grief is very simple. I think grief is the deep sorrow that we feel that when we have lost any person, place, or thing. Okay. So anything that you have an emotional attachment to, and a lot of people don't necessarily recognize pet loss as something, honorable, so to speak, but very much it is. I have 2 dogs that I very much love. They are my children. I don't have children, and if something happened to them, I would be devastated. But I encourage her to continue to grieve through her process, and
be open about it.
That's what I was going to say. So one of the biggest things I do tell people is give yourself permission to feel the way that you feel and be around people that also give you that permission to be vulnerable to do that, because I don't want her to feel like she has to hide it, because that takes the process much longer and more intensity on your body than it needs to.
Yep. I also want to put this quote from you, Tammy, because I think this applies to your minister, Jill, and who just wrote this. And maybe the ache doesn't end because it was never meant to be erased. Maybe it was meant to remind you that even in brokenness, you are still becoming.
Yeah.
And the sacredness of that anger, that hurt, that, nobody thinks of pain as sacred.
Yeah.
It's something to be eliminated.
Yeah.
Right.
It is and I'm going to say this, because you're not showing joy if you're in pain. And if you're a good Christian, I'm going to just sort of put it this way, sarcastically, I suppose, that if you're a good Christian person, you will know that Jesus has nothing but joy for you.
Yeah.
Am I saying that in
an alienating message?
It's an alienating
absolutely.
message.
I think it's a false doctrine or a false belief. I think it is people reading certain parts of the Bible and only believing just that part without actually connecting other parts of the Bible with it. I do recognize that everybody's not a scholar and you won't always be able to identify things, but I think that you have to always have space open for understanding. And we cannot say that Jesus or God only had joy for us when we see him moving through so many different emotions throughout the Bible, of him being angry even at his own people, right? Or being angry when we do stuff. He's going in temples and turning over tables. He's angry at people that he's killing off people, right? Then there are times that he has joy for us and he wants only but good things for us. Then there's times that God is sad about the things that we do. There's even moments and years where he was silent, didn't talk to any of us because of how he felt for us. So I think we have to be careful of certain things that we are saying, get a little more wisdom and clarity. When we know better, we do better. And just be careful with that. But also knowing, when we think about the quote, I think that we don't honor pain in a way that it is like this great thing in our life, because we know that it's not. I think what happens, what makes it sacred, is the work that the pain does in you or through you. So when I think about, and I think David Kessler talks about it as meaning, right? What comes out of what I am experiencing. Although I do want to say that as I'm going through my pain or going through my grief, I'm not necessarily looking for a meaning. I'm not necessarily looking for making this better. I am just wanting to be left alone, to feel the way that I feel. But when I get up from here, how am I living the life that I'm living? And so I think the pain of my mom's death and loss has really become sacred because of the work that I'm doing now. And sometimes pain will put a fire up under you to do something that you've never done before. Lack and poverty has created some of the most artistic and creative people in the world. I don't know why that is, but
it's an expression. It's a safe place to express it.
Absolutely. And the power that our brains are equipped with, that, because when you have too much, it doesn't need to think too much, right? And then you have these limited abilities that your brain is like a puzzle, Mary Frances calls it, trying to figure things out. And when you let it do what God created it to do, then I think you begin to see how pain has allowed the work in your life to become sacred.
Tammy, it has been an absolute joy having you on this show. I want to mention one more thing. You also have a podcast.
I do.
And it's Permission to Breathe.
Yes, it's on Spotify and Apple. Yes.
All right.
I just wrapped up season 3, so season 4 will be back in January. But I have 3 seasons worth of messages there.
Oh,
I'm putting it up now.
Yay!
Oh, Tammy, will you come back?
I will. I love you guys. You guys are
I'm so
fun.
glad you were here, and I can't wait to see you in Wisconsin.
I know. I'm excited.
Excellent. Thank you. Everyone have a really great weekend. Take good care of yourself. If you're going out on Saturday, please be careful. protect yourself, and I'll be out dressed like a frog. Yes, I will. Take good care, everybody.
Bye, everyone. See you
Bye.
next week.